Hi and welcome to the We Need Roads podcast, and Ben Lord has flown back off to the stars while Detective Jose was off searching for David in Florida, and he found him. Yes, you are both alive. So guys, what happened and whose basement was David trapped in?
Yes, we are alive. Nothing bad happened.
No, we are alive as well, yes. How are you, Neil? How have you been for the last 2 weeks?
I mean, it sounds like you've been replaced by robots, if I'm completely honest.
Ha ha ha. That is so funny and so wrong.
You crack me up every time.
I'm sorry, I couldn't keep that. That was weird. I didn't even mean to sound like a robot. I was trying to go Stepford Wives there, but
I was just copying Jose. We did not rehearse. No. I think that's clear.
Well,
good times though.
Back.
Good times.
Yeah, welcome back, guys. David, you look. Although the viewers can't see this, you look like your skin hasn't fallen off due to the extreme Florida heat. So that's good, right?
No, dude, it is so hot there. I don't know how Jose is alive. My face was peeling like a snake.
But you're English and he was born there, so, you know.
Well, here's the thing that I realized you guys don't have really in Europe, or maybe in Great Britain, is central air.
Sun?
Central air?
Central air. I mean,
aircon.
Aircon.
Oh, is that what that is? Oh, okay.
It's built into every building ever since the first 100 years ago.
No, aircon exists. Aircon exists. It's just
not in our houses.
Don't really ever need it. Yeah, it's not.
Oh,
it's not in houses. It's in like cars. You have cars with aircon.
Yes, but
office buildings,
anything with four walls and a ceiling has aircon in here. So it's kind of built in. It was
always too chilly as well. It was either one or the other. You were either boiling hot outside, or you go inside and they've got the aircon on just a bit too cold.
That's actually quite the common complaint from a lot of the females in the state.
Wow, Jose.
No pun intended.
Trying to say about me there.
No implications. No implications.
You are an American woman, David. Clearly.
During the summer, we try to stay away from the outdoors. It's just pretty difficult to deal with, even for us locals. Is that because of
the swamps and the super gators?
Well, the super gators are in all bodies of water. There's actually signs everywhere. But yeah, I mean, it's really the humidity. It's not necessarily the heat. It's the humidity, because we're so close to water and surrounded by it. It can be pretty hot, and then you just start sweating. Like I was saying earlier, you just plan to have an extra shirt in your car for when you go from place to place.
Jose, I need to know how far from the villages that you live.
I'd say off the top of my head, about an hour. An hour of driving, yes.
Now, do you want to explain to people what the villages is and why it's pretty well known in your...
I think it's more fun if you try to explain it.
Okay. So what I understand is it started off as like a retirement home for the rich and wealthy, and it's become a cesspit of STIs and swinger parties. That's my understanding. And there's like a whole like loofah system. I think they're called loofahs, like the scrubby thing that you wash yourself with in the shower. And there's like a whole like system as to which loofah. They like hang the loofahs on like golf carts. And it tells people what they're into. So like if you've got a white loofah, you're new to it. You want to test the waters. If you've got a black loofah, you're like full on, swap. Go with what the hell you want. If you've got a teal loofah, you're bisexual. So you're like basically up for anything.
I think you've learned way more than I even knew. I just knew it was a very...
There's a whole system. Like you just got to go Google the loofah system and the villages.
I just thought it was like, a free-spirited community. But I'm glad I let you go ahead and describe everything.
They like their sex there. And do not care what they catch. Well, unfortunately, I came back with more than just a tan as well.
Oh, no! And back to Disney.
Well, actually, we can go from sex parties to, first up in news, a company who are being massive dicks. Yay! Segue.
Hey.
And of course, we are talking about Netflix, because once again they have cancelled the amazing Lockwood Co. after just one season, a series that has a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes with a 94% audience score. Universally great to good reviews all over, and as we've personally found here at We Needed Roads, a massive engaged fandom. So much so that when we talked about it on a previous episode, it was instantly our most listened to episode of all time. And so, when we asked people what we should talk about on this episode on Twitter a few days back, we have just been deluged Deluge.
That sounds like we're back in Florida.
Yeah. By Lockwood fans, such as Francis at Panzerborn, who said, "It would be great if you could talk about Lockwood and being cancelled in combination with the writers' strike. I feel they both highlight issues with streaming services and money that's happening right now. Couldn't agree more, and we will be talking about the writers' strike in a minute as well." Smiling politely at Loving Pages said, "Could you mention the petitions to save hashtag Lockwood Co and its nomination for Best TV Drama at the NFAs this year?" The NFAs, guys, are the National Film and TV Academy Awards in England. And we just have. Eva at Agents at Lockwood Co said, "Just talk about Lockwood Co, maybe in combination with the writers' strike." So I think you know what we're going to be talking about in our news section today. Now, this is a first, because usually I'll read out every comment we receive when I ask for comments, except we've had so many come in that half the running time of the show would just be me reading out these comments. So anything that isn't basically just saying, renew, save Lockwood Co, and fuck Netflix, I'll read out. But all those comments, of which there are loads, but everyone who's left us a comment, we will tag you when we post the episode, like we said. And as they call themselves, the Lock Nation is quite strong. Great critical scores. Why did Netflix cancel it? What are the mystery metrics that we are not privy to? Anyone's got any ideas? Why has it been cancelled?
I'm just trying to, whilst you were going through all of that, look into the minutes and hours viewed and compare it with one of Netflix's more popular shows, such as Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And I think it is significantly different. So what I'm seeing is Lockwood & Co was viewed for roughly 12 million hours or something. And Stranger Things was 45.2 million hours.
Although you could say Stranger Things is one of their biggest hits. It is one of their big hits.
Yeah.
So it isn't surprising to have such a disparity, but does it have anything for a show that's more moderately successful?
You would, potentially, if I have done more research.
What are your sources?
My sources are a website called Digital Ratings.
Right. Okay. See, I had a little Google around. I found out that, my research said that they'd had around 40 million hours of viewership. And it had been number one in at least 80 countries. But only for 2 to 3 weeks. And apparently after the 3-week period, that's when the viewership dropped. But surely that just means everyone watched it when it came out. And this is what I don't understand. What, do they want us to keep rewatching the same show again and again and again, just to keep it at number one? And it seems like they almost want that, because a lot of these fan campaigns, I remember there was one with the Sandman, where they did exactly the same thing. You have to keep watching it again. You have to keep streaming it again, because that's the only way it'll get renewed. I mean, I'm amazed Sandman got renewed, to be fair, because it's that similar thing where, I reckon, my theory is the only reason they renewed Sandman is Neil Gaiman is quite obviously a much bigger author than Jonathan Stroud, who wrote the Lockwood books. And if they piss him off by cancelling his best-known book series, then that probably means he's never going to let any of his properties go to Netflix again. So I think it's a bit of that maybe to do with that. Whereas obviously Jonathan Stroud's not as well known, although he's still got quite a few good series of books out there. I mean, Netflix, they cancelled the show after just one season, and they left it on an almighty cliffhanger, because throughout the whole series, you keep getting told about this locked room in the house that you should never go in. And then at the end of it, the very last
spoilers.
Scene, well, it's not last scene because you don't know what's in the room. But so the last scene is Lockwood saying, "Let me show you what's in the room," and it's a cut to black.
But I mean, still, that's a spoiler in itself. It's like, oh, he's finally going to show them, and it kind of spoils. Just technicality. Here's the thing that I think it kind of relates to is Netflix it's known to cancel shows, and it's been doing that since 2014 for shows that are popular, unless they're ungodly unpopular, like Stranger Things.
I found one. I found something good. It was a Reddit post, so I don't know how reliable
True it is.
Yes, but this is telling me that Wednesday was watched 257 million times.
Right.
As in million
hours?
Views per hour. Yeah, per hour, yeah. Lockwood & Co. is 13 million.
Right.
So we don't have accurate numbers.
That's in line with other cancelled shows, such as The Midnight Club, which was roughly 10 million, Cowboy Bebop, which was roughly 8 million, Archive 81, which has also got cancelled, had more viewers than Lockwood & Co. at 18 million. 1899, 38 million.
So that should have really survived, shouldn't it? To be fair,
or based off that, yeah.
But here's the thing: these figures are never confirmed. We don't know what Netflix is. They don't publicise these figures. So any of these figures that you and me have both just sort of mentioned, it's all just speculation and stuff other people have posted. We just don't know, sadly.
It's shit that it's cancelled after the first run, though.
And I don't think it was that a pricey show, because a lot of it was just three main actors in rooms talking. You had the occasional ghost CGI fix here and there.
Find out.
Well, while you do that, David, I will say, I think that, honestly, good shows transcend fandom, and eventually they find their audience. You know, Lockwood, while primarily a young adult show, it was really well acted by the main trio, it had good production values, and was genuinely scary in places. And I think if people knew it was continuing, I think viewing would have come up again. You know, I think once you get around to Halloween, the more horror shows get pushed more, and people watch that kind of stuff. And the thing is, there are many campaigns and hashtags to save Lockwood Co. to try and get it on another network, but I don't think the chances for it are very good. I did some digging, and very few shows that have been cancelled by Netflix have found homes on other networks. There's an animated show called Tuca and Bertie, which found a home at Adult Swim. There was a horror show called Slasher that I've never heard of, that got another season on Shudder. And the only bigger name show I could find was a Neil Patrick Harris show called Uncoupled that was cancelled but then revived over at Showtime. But I think that actually may have involved some kind of trade-off deal at the time, because Netflix acquired a Showtime show at the same time. But, I mean, if you're one of the massive Lockwood fans out there, I think you just need to keep doing what you're doing, because fandom pressure on big networks can work. I don't think it'll work in time for Netflix to change their mind with Lockwood & Co. But I think what you will see happening slowly is that I think the best we can hope for is that the creators behind great fiction decide to not take Netflix's money anymore and not risk their great IPs and shows when they know that Netflix has got a history of cancelling them after one season. You know, you want to take them to a streamer who's going to give you a fair chance to tell the whole story. You know, Amazon rarely cancel shows outward. Apple are really well. I mean, Apple, for example, actually, although they don't have as much content, the quality of their shows really speaks for itself. And they've even got shows that I think should have been cancelled that are still on the air and got extra. Like The Morning Show was one of their big launch shows, right? Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. Season 1, brilliant. Season 2, definitely affected by COVID. Absolute dog shit. I hated it. It was just, I mean,
I wouldn't say it was dog shit, but it wasn't up to the quality. I think what it was is just pivoting to a new storyline. And Steve Carell, if it wasn't for him being the character, I think it would have been harder to empathize. But the show really tried to push that in the second season, which is tough. It's very tough.
The problem they made, for me, the main issues with the second season, that was that the COVID storyline, fair play, they were trying to address it right as it was all happening, but it was kind of misjudged. Like, you know, I mean, you know, Jennifer Aniston gets COVID in the show. You're like, oh dear. And a lot of the scenes just ended up with people in the room, usually her, usually Steve Carell, just shouting at each other for an hour. And I was like, I'm over it. Season 1 was so good. But, and again, I was thinking, okay, this show's done. You shouldn't bring it back for another season. You know, it literally jumped the shark jumped the cliff, to be fair, this show. But they're bringing John Hamm into it for season 3. So I was like,
there's a season 3?
They're making season 3 and John Hamm's in it. So I'm like, okay, I'm back.
Wow.
The Mosquito Coast, right, based on a book. And season 1 was the book. And now they've done a second series. I was like, well, but there's no more book to tell the story. Why are you doing it? And it wasn't like, you know, we watched it. Me and my family watched it. We was like, it's fine. But if there's better stuff out there.
Have you seen the show with Kaylee Kuko, the stewardess or something like that?
That's on isn't that HBO Max? Or sorry,
just
that
Max
is now.
That's Max. Yeah, actually,
and that's coming back for like more seasons.
Yeah, I saw the first season. I thought it was wonderful. The second season, it strayed, but I think it held its own. It wasn't as good. But if you're saying there's a third season, that's another example of shows getting more credit than they were due. And I think Netflix, that's where it fails. It doesn't let characters build. I think a lot of these shows, they were great, and I think they had potential to even be better once these characters had time to be developed.
You know what I'm going to say? It's all Lost's fault.
Ooh, no.
Because, and you know what I'm going to say here, David. Lost was the first show where it was a massive hit out of the gate. And from that kind of point onwards, for big budget shows, before the age of streaming kind of come in, it was, if a show's not an immediate hit, like Lost, then it gets one season at best, or it gets cancelled.
Well, I think, funny enough, Lost is an example of...
Because take Breaking Bad.
Yeah, that grew, didn't it? But it was critically appreciated in its first couple of seasons before.
Well, so was
everyone
Lockwood
else
Co.
caught. Yeah, but that was traditional cable, wasn't it? So
yes,
that was on AMC, wasn't it? Breaking Bad originally, and in the UK it was shown on Channel 5 the first couple of seasons, and then no one showed a couple of more seasons of it. It was only when it came onto Netflix when it had its final season in the UK with Breaking Bad. Sadly, as much as I'd love to see it, I just don't think we're going to get a second season of Lockwood, purely because I'll say, though, the one thing that Netflix, we can't slag them off too much, is that they generally don't remove their own original shows from the service once they're cancelled. Unlike someone else we're going to be talking about in a minute, which is Disney+. But first, in honour of Lockwood Co., let me say, if you want to know what's behind the door, then go and read Jonathan Stroud's great series to find out.
I wanted to say something about Lockwood Co., but then you kept going on and my point was going to get lost in what you were saying, and I was getting sad about it. But what I was going to say was Lockwood Co. being renewed for a second season is going to be less and less because it's child actors, isn't it? So to bring the child actors back into it, they'll have aged, as we know, children age rapidly. It's not like casting a 30-year-old and then a 35-year-old. It's basically the same thing. A 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, or a 15-year-old to a 20-year-old are completely different, right? So you've got a very finite amount of time to actually, for any streaming service to pick it up, or for any...
Yeah, that's a very good observation. It's very hard if it doesn't get done right away.
But as we've noticed, mate, though, Netflix generally don't sell their properties on to other third parties afterwards and let them continue doing it, because they keep all of their shows on the service still, which is bizarre, because, like I say, a lot of other services are cost-cutting. HBO have been doing it, Disney have been doing it.
So yeah, keep going with the fan power, I suppose, a message to the people, but in a non-toxic way, because we don't want like Snyder people out there going mental.
I feel like the fandom's been pretty good on this one, actually. It's there's the occasional fuck Netflix, I'm cancelling my subscription one, but generally it's, look, the show's great, take it somewhere else, take it somewhere where it's going to be appreciated.
Oh, one thing I was going to say earlier is also, the irony is Netflix used to be where shows were saved. Like Arrested Development was one of the more popular ones and Community went to Yahoo. But Arrested Development, I think, is one of the more popular ones that was famous for having one final season. Whether or not it was great or not is up to debate. But
didn't it have 3 more seasons?
Oh, did they? I didn't keep up after that.
I know 1 to 3 were the original ones on Fox, weren't they? And it was brilliant. And then it got it was on the verge of getting cancelled every year, which is why they kept doing crazy shit. Very similar to Community, actually. And then when it got cancelled, Netflix brought it back, but they couldn't get everyone back together, which is why I think season 4 of Arrested Development was like, it just focused on one character, and it just didn't really work. And then they re-released it, re-edited a few years later, so you could watch the whole story in chronological order, like a regular episode, and then they did a final last series as well. But yeah, it was never as good after those initial 3 seasons, sadly. So let's take us back to, as we've been talking Netflix cancelling shows, we asked on our Twitter, what are your top 3 cancelled shows that Netflix have produced? And, good God, we have got a lot of comments have been sent in. And naturally, I think you'll find a couple of shows have had a lot more than the other. So we're going to wait until I've gone through our listeners' comments. And then we're going to give our top 3 shows, although I've got 5 now, that we were cancelled by Netflix. So first off, from It's Not That Bad podcast, they said Cowboy Bebop for sure. I got a big kick out of Bruise Brothers right at the beginning of the pandemic. That made for some good laughs. And Warrior Nun. Cage Fighting Pod, one of the premier Nick Cage podcasts, said, Glow, 3 excellent seasons, pissed away because they weren't able to meet COVID safety precautions. Didn't even delay it, just binned it. A disgrace. BoJack Horseman, didn't like the animators unionising, did they? 3, Lucifer, although probably the right time to end it, but I did love it and I will miss it. Honourable mention, they didn't cancel it, but they allowed their rights to lapse on showing The League, a favourite US sitcom of mine. And I must mention, I love The League, man, because so many big comedy stars came out of that show. And for those of you who don't know The League, I'm sure you do, Jose, because it's a show, it's a half-hour sitcom, David, about
Is it American fantasy football?
Fantasy football one, yeah.
Yeah, I've watched it, yeah.
Yes.
It's funny.
It's really funny. And although that's the kind of thing that never really appealed to me here in the UK, the god-level tier of shit-talking and abuse these guys and girls hand out to each other over the seasons was superb. So in honour of The League, Baby Jeffrey, forever unclean.
Also, little-known fact, I think near the end, they were able to get the athletes on almost at the same time as the season was going on, which was amazing to see. I'm like, that's impeccable timing.
I did see lots of cameos of people go, that's got to be the actual football player they're talking about there. Next up, we got Spice T23 said, Lockwood Co, Skull & Co, which I think is just another Lockwood Co hashtag, Warrior Nun, and 1899. At Silent Majority said, oh God, Lockwood Co. Also, I never even got to try Warrior Nun because I was getting to it and effing Netflix canned it. Dark Cycle Pizza said, 100% Lockwood Co. They claimed it had low numbers, but that's rubbish. It did really well. They just never promoted it. Nerd in Texas said, I will never forgive them for cancelling Teenage Bounty Hunters.
Oh, wow. I heard about that. Never saw it.
This is a cool one. We had a response from someone who actually worked on the cancelled 4th series of Glow. Fellow podcaster Madison on the Air, who had this to say. She said, I was booked to work the 4th season as Glow. We shot the first episode and then COVID. It was meant to be the last season. The budget had been reduced. And once the time frame passed for filming, getting a cast, crew and even stages back just would have been tough. So I had to ask her then, well, what did you do on the show? And she said, I'm a background actor. The whole season was going to focus on Debbie owning and running a female-fronted TV network in the 80s. And I was going to be an office employee. The set was gorgeous and detailed. I even had 80s candy bars on my desk. I love that cast and crew. Such a delight. Sigh.
Oh, that's so awesome.
That's cool. We heard from someone who was actually worked on Glow. Fire Marin, I don't even know how to pronounce that. They said, our beloved show, Warrior Nun. We need come back. The Irregulars, they said, and Warrior Nun again, because they clearly...
A lot of love for Warrior Nun on this list.
A lot of love for Warrior Nun, yeah. We had Valentini Ellie, Lockwood & Co. I'm not okay with this. And Santa Clarita Diets. And the audacity of cancelling Drew Barrymore and Timothy Oliphant. Hain Chan 10, Warrior Nun, The OA and Lockwood & Co. Cancelled on a cliffhanger at Cancel Netflix. You can guess what their whole account is about. The OA, Mindhunter, and Friends from College. Mindhunter's a fucking good shout.
Mindhunter got cancelled?
Yeah, but I think that was more due to do with David Fincher wanting to take a longer break in between and just not being able to keep everything together on it. Alex at Grumpy Weed, 1899. It's like they cancelled Dark. It's like they cancelled Dark 3 times, and he's put 1899 3 times. Emney said, 1899, undoubtedly. I was upset when Mindhunter and the Midnight Club was cancelled, but after 1899, I had to end my Netflix subscription. I am still mourning this show after 6 months. And Frankenskronk at Chiller Rose said, 1899, The OA, Netflix's extreme short-sightedness screwed over both of these masterpieces. Original stories, not remakes, reboots, or adaptations. Truly good original stories are so few and far between. I can't believe Netflix prematurely cancelled these. I'm still in mourning. So there you have it, guys. A lot of people are annoyed at Netflix.
Well, I gotta say, Warrior Nun, I knew had an appeal, but they had a lot of fans come out to mention this.
Yeah, man.
And then 1899, is that the one where it's like the prequel to Yellowstone?
No. That's
so it's completely different.
This is a sci-fi period drama on a boat.
Foreign, isn't it? Who were the makers?
It was the people who did Dark, the German team behind Dark.
German.
But it was an international cast, so you had loads of different actors all speaking in their native languages. Well, that was a hell of a lot of people really annoyed at Netflix. So, what are your top 3 cancelled Netflix shows? Jose.
Oh, thank you. I think I have 1 obvious one and 3 not so obvious ones. The first obvious one was Glow, which I'm so shocked to hear that we had someone listening work on the production, and I heard the same thing where they were getting ready and things just didn't line up well, and it was I was so ready for it to come out, and for obvious reasons, all the actors were great. I think I knew when it was done was when I saw Chris Lowell play the millionaire, the guy with the money. When I saw him on How I Met Your Father, I was like, okay, I just have to accept it, And then the 3 not so obvious ones, I think I'm going to go from oldest to newest.
Okay. Are you going to say Hemlock Grove?
No. I think I actually didn't watch that one, honestly. I was actually on Amazon for a long time before I even got Netflix, which is why I really didn't have that many shows that I watched. But this is going to sound funny. I don't think you're going to expect this. But the show Girl Boss. It was a show about someone in San Francisco who made money selling their vintage clothing. And the story was fine. And honestly, it had very bad reviews. I looked back and I was surprised. I think because I was so not the target market that I was interested just because it kind of showed a really cool story about what was going on. But apparently it was not the true story. So it painted the main character as a lot better than the real life aspect because it was based on a real person.
Okay.
And it had RuPaul in it, which I thought was awesome. And then Dean Norse, as you might know from Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Britt Robertson, it was the main actress.
I knew I recognized it. Right, no. Here's something random. My yoga instructor, one of her friends just got married to Britt Robertson.
You're kidding me.
She flew out to LA for the wedding. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous now.
That's insane.
Legitimately, that's not even. I'm like, Britt Robertson, I think, made that show so much better than it deserved to be. And I mean, when I saw she was in Tomorrowland, I thought it was a great movie, even though it was a bit muddled. It had a problem of sticking the landing at the end of the movie. But that was my first one.
Yeah. I was about to kind of like you getting to the end of this list, Jose. What's number 2?
Sorry. All right, I'll go through it a little more fast. Friends from College is another one with Colby Smulders, Keegan-Michael Key, Fred Savage, Billy Eichner, and then some other names you may not recognize, but they're people you've seen, Nat Faxon and Greg German. Those are very serious actors who I think put in great performances. There are two series of that show, which I thought were pretty good. Not the best stories, they're very obvious, but I just really like the cast. And then the last one, I Am Not Okay With This. That's the name of the show.
And you weren't.
I was not okay. I mean, granted,
the whole Netflix apparently.
The season, it took a while just to get to the point that the main character, a teenage girl, kind of an outcast, but she ended up having telekinetic powers. But you didn't really see that until maybe the last half of the series. Main actress was Sophia Lillis from It.
That's it.
In Chapter 2. But fun fact, she was also in Dungeons and Dragons as the character who can change shapes.
The owlbear.
The owlbear, which I didn't really connect until I just saw the casting. I was just like, no way. No wonder I liked her. Yeah.
This way.
Yes. But those are my shows, and I tried to pick something a little less obvious, but that I still enjoyed. But Glow was by far the one I missed the most. Yeah.
All right, David. It's going to be murder dramas, isn't it?
No, but if it was Natasha. In no particular order, we have Santa Clarita Diet, which does have a lot of murders in it. The classic Zomcom.
Yes, Zomcom.
My main question for that, David, because I didn't watch it, how good is Timothy Oliphant's hair in it?
It's fantastic. It's classic. It's classic him.
You can never question his hair.
It's like gravity doesn't touch it. It's fantastic. So that was sad. That was a sad day when that left. I actually didn't realise it was cancelled. I just thought they were taking fucking ages to,
David,
4 years later or whatever
about
it was.
A lot of shows.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, they just cancelled it. The other one, my second one, which I loved, which was American Vandal, the Who Drew the Dicks, the Brown Out. It was so fucking good. Both of them were fantastic. The Dicks one was much better than Brown Out, but still, the fact that they cancelled that is just dire. They could have at least just used the name and taken it somewhere else. Just didn't have to follow the same kids. Just
maybe a spin-off,
the American Vandal name.
Make it an actual mystery show.
It was one of the best mockumentaries I think I've seen for a long time.
I still try to recommend that to people who don't know about it and not imply that it's fake. I want to see how far they can go until they realize it's a fake show.
I genuinely think my wife now would not have guessed unless I'd have told her. I think she would have gone for the whole film thinking that it's legitimate because it's that well done. And you get so engrossed in this dick story. It's fantastic.
Yes. It's so good. It's honestly, because after the first episode, you're like, okay, I get it. How can they keep going with it? And they do. They do such a good job. It
is such a shame that got cancelled. My third one, which I'm going to go with AJ and the Queen, which was the RuPaul starring Drag Race, drag queen that was aging and a bit on the decline.
I heard about that show. I never saw it.
Traveling around America with like a foul-mouthed 10-year-old. It was hilarious. It was touching. It was sad. It was all the things that you want a good show to be. And cancelled it after season 1.
Wow,
awesome. That's a good one. And we both have a RuPaul show. What do you know,
mate? On our very first episode ever, David reviewed Drag Race.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then our main event was The Shining versus Doctor Sleep. But we'll get into that another time. Actually, we'll definitely get...
Jose, are you trying to say that you've not listened to our very first episode?
Not the first one. Everything.
Oh, calling him out. Call him out for what it is.
My top 3, anyway, is a top 5, because I kept forgetting shows. So, number 5, 1899, which annoyed the piss out of me, because I thought season 1, it was really good. It was a big international show from the makers of Dark, and the twist at the end of the first series would have changed the whole fucking genre of the show if they'd got to make the second series. Ooh. And just I was so excited by that twist. I was like, it's funny because some people saw that twist and were like, this is fucking bollocks, I'm out. A friend in the office at the work said that. It's like, no, that's stupid. I'm done with it.
Which friend?
Our friend Charlie Gallagher.
No, Charlie.
Charlie loved it. He watched it.
Charlie boy.
He got a bit more annoyed as it went on, and he absolutely hated the twist at the end. 4, Glow, as we said, great show. I mean, Alison Brie and who was the other lead in it? I forgot her name.
Betty Gilpin.
Betty Gilpin, that's it. They were superb.
Beautiful woman. Sorry, I'm gonna gush a little bit about her. That's it. I'm just saying she's
clean
beautiful.
up on Isle Jose. And number 3, Cowboy Bebop, which apparently only I liked. Because next to...
I believe so.
I think I had a couple of people... I had one comment people said they liked... I'd never watched the anime that it was based on, which is like up there as one of the best animes of all time, apparently. I just enjoyed it. It reminded me of Firefly. I thought all the actors did their stuff really well. I didn't care that they changed stuff from the original a bit, because I hadn't seen the original. It was fun. It was really, and it looked amazing. And I believe they filmed it out in New Zealand. Unfortunately, it also cost a bomb, and it didn't do that well in the viewing figures. Number 2, it's got to be Lockwood Co. Because, what an ending. And they're just, I mean, I think we said enough about Lockwood Co. But yeah. But number 1, the show that a genuine genre-defining, bizarro genre show, The OA.
Yes.
Either of you watched The OA?
I've watched the first half of the first season.
Oh, it gets so much more disturbing and weird.
It's very hard for me to keep up with a show unless I binge it, and sometimes I just get distracted and then I forget because all the new shows come in. But the OA was something I wanted to go back to until I found out they just canceled it. David, it really is interesting how sometimes a show... I just won't finish it just because I know there's no good ending to it.
David, do you ever see The Highway?
No, I've not seen it.
It's, you know how like when you watch a show or a movie sometimes, and the end, the title card of the show or movie will come in like 10 minutes into it, or like Babylon, it was like half an hour into it. In the very first episode of The OA, and I don't know the exact timings, but the title The OA pops up about 10 minutes before the end of the show, and it was around an hour. It's a really bizarre, clever show. I got real kind of like Donnie Darko vibes for it. Jason Isaacs kind of plays this baddie. There's a whole thing about time travel and alternate dimensions and all this kind of mind-expanding stuff. And they do a twist at the end of the second series that is so utterly insane that you're just like, I can't believe that we will never see this. And in fact, Britt Marling and I can't remember the creator of the show, because she co-created it with them, or she was co-writer on it with them, the lead actress. And they are still trying to get it away from Netflix so they can finish the story somewhere, be it a film, be it anywhere. And they keep trying to get it away. I hope they do, man, because that is just... I would recommend watching the OA because it's got such
watch it?
It's, yeah.
I'm not going to lie, when you kept talking about the OA, I was thinking of the OC. With Rachel Bilson for a little bit.
Very different show. Very different.
And then I was like, wait, no, this is a sci-fi film, isn't it? Where there's the I remember what it was. Film, yeah.
Show,
show, yeah. Sorry.
Even the first couple episodes of the first series, it goes in different directions already, but you just don't know where. And then I think I missed where it gets really great. Honestly,
Jason Isaacs is superb in it. It's like career-defining performance in there. So that leads us on to Disney Plus, who have also raised the ire of fandom this week and this month. just recently, because not only have they cancelled Willow after one season, despite the end credit sequences promising us 2 more seasons, but one step worse than Netflix, Disney Plus have actually pulled the show off their service completely. Meaning, a lot of shows, and in fact, they've just done it in, I think it was the 23rd of May they've done it. They took off over 100 shows and movies from the service worldwide. And that means a lot of these shows that were created specifically for Disney Plus don't actually exist anywhere because there was no physical media release of them ever.
What are they freeing up space for?
Well, it's not they're freeing up space. They are trying to save money.
Yeah.
And I
this
will get
tax
into
write-off.
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't because one of the writers of Willow, John Bickerstaff, had this to say. He put out a statement saying, "They gave our show 6 months, not even. This business has become absolutely cruel. Before you say tax write-off, these shows have already been released, so can't be a write-off. And in the case of Willow, they own the property outright, so there's no licensing. The only conclusion is that this is to get out of paying residuals. During a strike, and look,
oh, man.
Eternal streaming libraries aren't sustainable. We're all going to have to adjust to that at some point. We can't just have all content online all the time. But to spend redacted on a show and then disappear it 6 months later is just bad business." And it wasn't just Willow, like I mentioned. They've removed stuff like Artemis Fowl is gone. That was a movie that dropped straight on Disney Plus in the pandemic. Stargirl, The Real Right Stuff, The World According to Jeff Goldblum, Dollface, Future Man, Little Demon, even Why the Last Man are gone. I just started watching Little Demon the other week. It's like an adult animated comedy with Danny DeVito playing the devil and Aubrey Plaza playing his daughter. And it was very disturbing and way over the line, but I was enjoying it. And I thought, I'm going to go back to that, and now I can't because they took it off.
You know what I think? They're just it's very different from when movies would go out and maybe they wouldn't do great on theaters, but then the DVD sales would bring it back. But with streaming,
there's no
if they keep doing this, there's no way to even really bring back the popularity because sometimes shows do need a little time to warm up, even if they don't have extra seasons. But to just have an audience that, hey, you know what I saw? I think I should see this again, or hey, let me recommend this to someone who hasn't seen it because I really think it's worth a little bit of your time.
And it does happen. I mean, Community was a great example, right? That was on the verge of getting cancelled all the time, every year. And then it did get cancelled. Then they brought it back. Then it got cancelled again, and they brought it back. And then its 6th and final season ended up on Yahoo Screen, which is a service that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But then, where did it get more people discover it? It got put on Netflix all 6 seasons during the pandemic, and that's when most people discover Community.
I did, and I was one of those people, and I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot of that until after the fact because I love that show. I mean, after the 3rd season, when it got a little weird in the 4th season, I did notice there was a shift. I did know about Donald Glover leaving at some point, so when I saw that, I knew that's when it was there was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff going behind the scenes. But then one of the female characters,
the creator of the show, Dan Harmon, he got fired after season 3. And then season 4, it was what they called the gas leak season. Yeah. And then fan outrage and like I think some of the actors complaining, he got brought back for season 5 and 6.
And honestly, 4, 5, and 6 were all very different. But they were still funny. So if anything, me as a new viewer, I had no clue what was going on. I still enjoyed the show, and I made it all the way through 6 seasons. Yeah, and I think.
And a movie, and there's a movie coming.
Yeah,
they're making the movie right as we speak.
6 seasons in a movie. I'm so excited for that. And honestly, if it wasn't for the pandemic, you don't know what could have happened. The movie maybe never would have made. I
think that's a pretty good essay.
So
I don't think we would have got it.
I think sometimes we just have to like these companies should learn
give shows a chance. Give shows a chance.
Exactly, and that's kind of going back to the Netflix situation where. Like, if you look at The Office and Parks and Rec, I think those are very 100%. Commonly known. First seasons were not great. Like, they were good enough. And then the writers were given time to, like, hey, let's see where these characters can go.
I'd go further, actually. I'd say the first series of Parks and Rec is abysmal. I mean, some of the best characters aren't even in it. Mark Brendanawicz. Fuck Mark Brendanawicz. What a terrible character. He's a terrible character, man. It's almost like when they cast Adam Scott and went, right, so... we want about maybe 10% of what this guy was doing. Okay, got it. Just be Adam Scott. And it absolutely nails it. And yeah, like you say, Ron barely had any lines. Jerry didn't have any lines.
Yeah.
Donna didn't have any lines. Aubrey Plaza. The change in Chris Pratt's character from annoying loser boyfriend to lovable idiot. You know, it was. That was probably the best example.
And down. I think it's definitely one of those things where it may not happen with a lot of shows, because I was looking at the list of all the shows that were canceled by Netflix, and I saw episodes of some of them, and I'm like, yeah, those were not great shows, but I think some of them really had a lot of potential.
A lot of them were one season. They didn't get a chance. I mean, I was looking, The Get Down. Do you remember The Get Down? It was the one about the birth of rap music in New York in the late 70s with Justice Smith. It was really good. I was really into it. Altered Carbon. Superb.
Oh,
that was amazing. 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's a little tough to carry on, though. Altered Carbon had a weird story.
Well, no, the good thing with Altered Carbon is you could just change the cast every season.
Oh, true.
So you can keep costs down. So they could have kept doing that. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. That got canned after 4. To be fair, it made it to 4. So there was a more recent one, Young What Adult one, The Bastard Son and the Devil Himself. That was really good. That had potential.
Okay.
I mean, anyway, it was good. It had potential, and I liked watching that. Warrior Nun, Sense8, the Wachowskis.
That's what I was going to say. Sense8 was one that just was really cool, and you just was like, well, what happened? You know, people who don't listen to the news, they're just like left in the cold. You know.
And the last one I mentioned of that, Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. You spent all that time doing this great puppets, and you used them once, and they had an all-star. I mean, that was a great show as well, man. So shit, where was I? So basically, one of the reasons Disney are doing this, although the writer said it isn't a tax write-off, it is a tax write-off as well in some ways. Not potentially for their show, because like you say, it's been made. But I looked into it, and it's what they call a content impairment charge. And it will save Disney between 1.5 and 1.8 billion. And essentially, it's an accounting method where an asset's current market value has fallen below the original cost or value of making a project, indicating it has lost some of its initial worth. So in other words, it's cheaper to write it off.
That's just so unfortunate.
Are we still talking about Willow? Because my dog was chasing a fly and I had to go and sort it out.
No, David, you're a little behind on a lot.
You're a little behind on a lot. I love that. Let's get out a bumper sticker, David. Well, David, you're just in time for us.
That's going to be written on my gravestone, I think. Were we still talking about Willow?
We were talking about Disney and just stuff being cancelled still.
Because Willow was... I was just come back from Disney World, and Willow was being advertised everywhere, still, after the fact that it had been cancelled. Not quite taken off, but cancelled. And it was everywhere. So it was on billboards, it was on buses, it was on, like, the parks, on, like, just Hollywood Studios, like a massive billboard.
Wow. Sadly, with Willow, I think the biggest problem with the show was... It started good, and it started okay, and it got better and better as it went on. And when it got to the season finale, I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like, I love the fact it had a multicultural cast. It had really good performances, and this is the one where I did my reverse ferret on. Do you remember we talked about Captain America, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and how terrible the villain girl was in it, the Flag Smasher, whatever her name was. The actress is called Erin Kellyman.
She was terrible. She was the better part of it.
No, she was one of the worst parts of it.
The worst.
Her motivations were just all over the place. She went from being a sympathetic character, anti-hero, to just being outright evil. Burning down a building full of people.
Yeah, she was
went
bad
from 0
in
to 100 pretty quick.
Yeah. But in Willow, she's brilliant. So there you go. Mm-hmm. Proof that it's, the show, not the person, obviously.
The content.
But, I mean, you get Christian Slater does a guest spot in it. He turns up one episode, which is really cool. Joanne Whalley from the original film's in it. Ironically, probably the worst thing about it is actually the guy who plays Willow himself.
Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis is not good in it. And you see him acting against the rest of the cast. Yeah. You just see him against the rest, and you see him acting against the rest of the cast in certain scenes. You're like, oh, come on, mate. Give it a bit more oomph. You're just not.
Oh, no.
But then,
I love Warwick Davis. I've met Warwick Davis.
You should watch Willow, man.
He signed a picture, and I feel he called me a knob.
Well, I mean,
in a good way or a bad way?
Well, for the longest time, I felt like he called me a knob. He said to David, "You knob, Warwick Davis." But what he actually said was "Yub-nub," because that's what Wicket says in Star Wars.
Brilliant.
But I thought he was calling
how
me a
long
knob.
did your campaign of harassment and terror against Warwick Davis continue, David?
Well, I confronted him about it. I went to see a stage show that he was at in Derby, and I asked him, he told me, no, it's Yub-nub.
So you've seen him twice.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh, and
he was recently on a Princess Cruise as well, according to Twitter.
Oh, no way.
On the Diamond Princess, doing the
Hey, old ship.
Old ship, yeah. Good memories. If I had the memories.
if you can remember past the alcohol. So this leads us on to, in a minute, with Disney, and what's heavily connected with that is the writer's strike. And one of the key aspects of that is over, what we've been mentioning, residuals. Because basically, in the old days, a writer, and generally most people who worked on the show, received residual payments whenever the show was aired, be it a repeat, be it sold to another channel, etc. And residuals are generally the backbone of many people who work in the film and TV industry. Now, the last writer's strike lasted 100 days, and they estimate it cost the industry over $2 billion. So, what is the strike about this time? Well, it's about a whole bunch of things. Firstly, the writers want higher wages, because it's estimated that a writer's pay has declined over 23% over the last decade when adjusted for inflation. Next is the advent of mini writers' rooms, whereas on more traditional shows, a writer's job, you'd be on staff for 6 to 9 months, pretty much the whole run of the show. You get all your healthcare and all that provided as that kind of side of it. But with the advent of streaming, and you got the rise of smaller writing staffs, and what's happening is the writers are being employed for much shorter amounts of time and for much less money. In fact, directly connected to this, I read that on the new Netflix show Beef, the writer's room employment finished before the shows had been finished being written, which meant the creator of the show had to write the finale by himself while the show was in production. That's insane.
Did you hear about the new one with Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool? He's actually legally not able to do any improv because he's technically a writer on the movie.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for Deadpool.
We are going to be
fans.
Absolutely screwed in about 6 months to a year's time for content.
Yeah.
It's going to be real shit, yeah. Everything's going to take a massive time. Some of our favourite shows as well are impacted by it.
Not some, all of the shows, man.
Oh, yeah, all of our shows, yeah.
Bringing it back to Lost, I was a huge fan of Lost, and I think the strike back then happened around the second season, but I didn't personally see it until the third season when things just went off the rails. And
let's have an episode about Jack's tattoos.
That's making it sound like I'm against the writer's strike. I'm not. I'm for it. Like,
it's just unfortunate that it's taking so long to get taken care of.
I've just seen the residual payment that one of the writers got, which was literally like a check written out for 2 cents or like 3 cents or something like that.
Oh, man.
And that's very common, man.
Yeah, that's insane.
And as we mentioned, residuals are a key issue, and most streamers don't pay residuals, or if they do, they're nowhere near their previous TV deals. Not paying residuals was one of the first things Warner Brothers did when they had their merger with HBO and Discovery.
How would it work though with streamers?
So you just get
that's
paid
something they need to hash out, isn't it?
Exactly, and because it's evolving technology, this deal with all the guilds that happens every 3 years, they negotiate it. And the last time it was negotiated was during the start of COVID, and they just agreed everything basically, so everyone could keep working during COVID.
Yeah, because it's not based off viewership, is it? And I feel with streaming, it kind of needs to be to work, maybe potentially.
I'm not sure now.
Like if something for the first year and then for the next year it gets X amount of viewers, they should be paid.
Well, then would Netflix need to make public what their viewers are? How much viewing there is?
I don't know, yeah.
Well, also, I was going to say, the writers want regulations in place regarding the use of AI in scripting, which is a big issue at the minute.
Oh,
they want,
man, that's scary.
Pay structures updated to reflect the loss of traditional residual streams, safeguards and preservation for traditional writers' rooms, a minimum pay for streaming, so like a guaranteed, you get this if you do a streaming show, and a guaranteed number of weeks on the job. Here's the kicker. Everything the writers want will cost the studios $429 million. The studios countered with an offer of around $80 million. David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, takes home a salary of $250 million a year. So there you go. He can just not get paid for 2 years, and it's all sorted. Pay your writers, man. Have one less yacht. What I have liked is, when you've seen all the writers protesting, they've got the cleverest things written on their signs. Like, one literally just said, perhaps have one less yacht, which was brilliant on one of the signs.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really... Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense what you just said about not paying himself for 2 years. But
I mean...
Well, no, it does, because you could pay... the thing I'm trying to make, you got 15,000 screenwriters who are members of that guild who are on strike. You've got one guy who was making almost 2/3 of the money that they want for all of them.
Yeah. I mean, that guy could just take a pay cut. And,
take a pay cut.
Stop being a dick, David.
No, because what you're getting into, getting into something that's more political. which isn't what this is. You're getting into
it could be economical
entirely. Yeah. Which isn't what the problem is here.
Correct.
Well, you know what's going to happen is the longer this drags on, that means it's just going to impact. Well, it will. It is now. It's impacting all TV and film production. And what then happens is it's likely that the Directors Guild goes on strike and the Actors Guild goes on strike. What's going to happen is you're not going to get any. You're going to get no new shows very soon. I reckon probably the trade-off is probably about 6 months' time. 6 months to a year.
You mentioned in previous conversations, new shows will arrive. It's just going to be reality shows, which some people don't care, and other people are just like, okay, God. I've had enough.
I'm just... We're going to be reviewing a lot of classic films next year. That's what I'll be saying.
Hey!
Have you seen that late night show clip of Conan O'Brien, where he's literally there, like, spinning his wedding ring to try and save time? Because there's no written... the time. This was in the last writer's strike. So the time... They'd obviously, like... done X amount of content and they didn't have anyone writing any more content, so he's there literally sitting there at his desk trying to do absolutely anything to fill time because they've got nothing written.
The Saturday Night Live season finale was cancelled this year, so it's the first time there's not been first time ever, because it's just never coincided before, so there was no Saturday Night Live finale, which is a shame, man.
Pay the people. Pay them.
Pay them what they want.
Because we're going to get fucking shit endings to everything that we love.
Shows will be cancelled.
Shit shows.
Shows will be cancelled. The shows will be shit. They'll be fucking diabolical.
Dogs and cats living together.
Heroes. It will be like Heroes. Heroes is one of my favourite shows. And then oh God.
What happened to Peter Petrelli's girlfriend in the future? We never knew. She was just axed out of existence, man.
What happened to Peter Petrelli? That's another man I met. Milo Ventimiglia is the nicest celebrity I've ever met in real life. That's mine.
I'm so glad to hear that. I genuinely am, because he's done some great characters. Gilmore Girls. He's the son of Sylvester Stallone.
He was genuinely lovely. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. And then movies and shows. Movies that we're watching.
Well, and first up, here's a new show. Have either of you guys heard of Colin from Accounts?
No.
I've heard of Sharon from Finance.
That's a spin-off show that hasn't been made yet. So, Colin from Accounts is an Australian comedy drama of 8 roughly 30 minutes episodes, and they're on the iPlayer in the UK. So, Jose, I have no idea where you find that in the States. But it's a really great show written by the two lead actors, Harriet Dyer and Patrick Bramall. They're kind of involved in a meet-cute turned car accident, which results in an injury to a small dog they then call Colin. Dyer plays Ashley, a junior doctor who's just getting over a bad breakup with a colleague, while Bramall plays Gordon, a slightly older bloke who, by the appearance of his partner, has been single for way too long. And after initial meeting, these two people are kind of forced into each other's life because they decide they don't want to put the dog down, so they're going to have to take care of it. But she can't have dogs in her apartment, he doesn't want a dog there, and so it's them kind of trying to figure out between them how they take care of this dog. Exactly, Cheddar.
Cheddar, you couldn't have timed that better. Good job.
He knew what I was going to say, because unfortunately, poor Colin now has wheels for legs.
Oh, Cheddar, that won't happen to you, buddy. We'll take care of you. IVDD won't happen, buddy.
We'll just chop him off.
Jesus.
Coming off soon. Let's cut that out.
No, Cheddar's balls are coming off soon. We could always mention that. Don't tell him. Don't tell him about it, though, because it's a secret.
So what you're saying is don't let Cheddar listen to the podcast. Well, look, it's a really good show, and the dialogue and the patter between the two main characters really sparkles, and then it's understandable when you find out that the couple are married in real life.
Can you say the name of the show again?
Yeah, it's Colin from Accounts, which you can now search while I finish telling you about it. And there's a real edge to the writing, and it's got that very English, dry style of Aussie sarcasm. You remember working with the Aussies on board, Jose? They were just brutal with the sarcasm sometimes.
You know, I'll be honest. I didn't have many. I didn't know many people from Australia. Maybe New Zealand. Oh wait, we knew one. We have a mutual friend.
I roomed with a guy called Angus. He's the most Australian person you can come across.
Which is funny because his name sounds Scottish.
Angus.
Oh, yeah, and for the record, if I want to use an official I can watch Colin from Accounts on BBC iPlayer in the US.
Oh, you can?
I can, but I have to use BBC iPlayer.
There you go.
You have BBC iPlayer over there?
I thought you just had BBC America. Yeah. Cool. What?
That's the official answer from Google.
Right, so that might not be right. But despite the show being focused on the ever-growing, slowly relationship between Ashley and Gordon, there are a real superb supporting cast as well. You see both of them in their respective work environments. Ashley, she's a junior doctor at a hospital with her drug-stealing best friend Megs, and her handsome but witless ex James. Gordon runs a brewery with his mates Brett and Chiara, and just you wait till you meet Ashley's horrific mum Lynette, who's just terrible. She's horrific. She literally, there's one episode where her mum turns up at her door and goes, "Someone's been raped." Who? And it's someone she doesn't even know that she read about like ages ago, and it's just like she just literally says it to get in the house. Now look, this show has had great reviews across the board, and although not officially confirmed from a second series, I heard an interview with the two main stars the other day, and they seemed fairly confident it was going to happen. And we need this show. We need to see this brilliantly acted, written, and we need to see this brilliantly acted and written story of Ashley and Gordon and Colin. We just need it to continue. More Colin from Accounts. Now, next up, Yellowjackets Season 2. As no one else on the pod watches Yellowjackets, this will be relatively spoiler-free. So, Yellowjackets is a story of a girls' soccer team that crashes in the Canadian wilderness in 1996, which does allow us many great 90s needle drops. And they fight for survival and possibly turn towards cannibalism. Interesting enough, right? So far, so lost. Except the show almost immediately cuts forward in Season 1 to the present day. So we got survivors, and we know what happened to them back in the day. So we realise that what happened to them back in the 90s is affecting them in the present day. Exactly, Cheddar. Now, usually I hate shows with flashbacks because one story is always better than the other. Usually the flashbacks are better than the stuff in the present day, or vice versa. But in this, the casting is so spot on between the younger and older casts. And in the first series, both storylines were so interesting because of how weird and crazy the show was. It just threw an absolutely insane amount of shit at the screen every episode. So even if there was a scene that didn't work, you'd be like, "Oh Christ, what's happening there?" And it was really entertaining. Season 1 was a massive highlight, and I think it just made it onto my top 10 shows list of the year. The masterstroke of the show was casting mainly 90s teen actresses, now in their 40s as the survivors in the present. The show's lead is Shauna Shipman, and she's played in the past by Sophie Nellis, and in the present, the amazing Melanie Linsky, who we just saw in The Last of Us. Tawny Cypress and Yasmin Savoy Brown, who we saw in Scream 5 and 6. She plays Thaisa Turner, who in the present is running for Senate. And you've got Ella Purnell, who plays Jackie, Shauna's best friend, who is basically, she's like the captain of the team, and then when you get into the wilderness, she's absolutely fucking useless. You've got Samantha Hamratty and Christina Ricci, both play Misty Quigley, and what a year it's been for Christina Ricci. She's got this amazing character called Misty, who's the unpopular weird girl, who was the team's mascot, and she just gives an awards-worthy performance in this show. You've got Juliette Lewis playing the quintessential Juliette Lewis role, where she's kind of like a drug-crazy psychopath. Now, as I said, the pace of Season 1 was electric, and it would continually just blow your mind every episode. You'd be reeling from scene to scene. But once we got used to the two different time periods, we start trying to guess, okay, who are they going to eat? Because there's a montage at the very start of the first episode where you see someone getting eaten and someone falling into a spike pit, and we haven't seen that yet. So you keep waiting. Yeah.
Okay,
it's all right.
Spoiler alert, please.
Well, no, it's in the opening scene of the first episode.
Okay, still.
You don't see what happens.
I mean, it helps to be surprised in the first episode, still.
The opening scene, this is literally before you even get to the opening scene.
Okay,
there's
I'm
a
just
montage.
Giving you shit. I'm just giving you shit, that's all.
And but what's good is you then start thinking, wait a minute, we haven't seen that character in the past, in the present yet. Are they going to die? And so you start to become this guessing game each episode of who you, and then the show really has fun. Oh, no, there you go. There's that character you thought was dead. Here's them. And they get to bring in some really cool actresses as well. For Season 2, which is kind of cool. So, I really couldn't wait for Season 2. So, what do you guys think?
Was Season 2 as good? Because I heard mixed reviews about Season 2.
Yeah, it's mixed. Look, it's sadly for me, it's mildly disappointing. The pace of the show just slows to a halt, right? The flashback scenes pretty much just all comprise of the girls huddling for warmth and starving in a cabin, with only the odd bit of minor murder and cannibalism. Even the addition of Elijah Wood's strange new character, and also you get Lauren Ambrose jumping over from Servant as an adult version of one of the characters who we hadn't seen before, can't take the show to the heights of Season 1. And I think the problem was they churned out so many great ideas in Season 1, and it looks like with Season 2 they've just narrowed their focus on a few plot strands, and they never stray from that path. The whole season just feels like a holding pattern. I mean, that's not to say it's suddenly a bad show. Melanie Linsky's Shauna is still the MVP of the show, closely followed by Ricky's crazy Misty. But whereas the past and present were equally as important and good in season 1. In season 2, the flashback scenes are just boring and repetitive. Very little happens, and what it does, it's entirely predictable. The whole season 2's present storyline is pretty much just about getting all the survivors back in one place, which you can see coming a mile off and just takes way too long. That said, the music is still massively on point, with season 2 opening with one of my favourite Smashing Pumpkins songs of all time, Drown. You've also got their Bullet with Butterfly Wings. You've got music from Garbage, Papa Roach, Tori Amos, Danzig, Nirvana's Something in the Way, which can we use after it was in the Batman? You've got St. Vincent doing a cover of Metallica's Sabbath True. You've got the Cranberries' Zombie, Radiohead Street Spirit, and just to give it that nod to Donnie Darko, you've got Echo and the Bunnymen's The Killing Moon, which I'll ever associate with that film. So yeah, I mean, I would say go to Spotify and bookmark the 98 song, 6.5 hours Yellow Jackets official playlist, because currently the playlist is better than the show at the minute. And we had a comment. Hayley from Caldenby said Yellow Jackets season 2 was somehow even better than season 1. I love that the more characters were introduced into the present narrative, and that more was explored there too. I'm looking forward to seeing where season 3 goes. So hey, she preferred it more than I did. Jose, what have you been watching?
I watched Ted Lasso. But a Mandalorian. I actually watched the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special about 4 months late. I saw an episode of You. Lucky Hank on Amazon, the show with Bob Odenkirk after his great run. I just saw the free episode because I wasn't going to pay, even though I have Amazon Prime, which is another situation. But I think it's a great show to start off with. You can see small Better Call Saul moments, but he's playing a very different character. I think I also saw a little bit of him in Nobody. He plays a very he plays a pretty much the same character, but with just some different nuances. Some more likable than others in terms of a movie versus the show.
I was going to say, I think if you'd listened to our last couple of episodes where you've been away, Jose, we talked Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in full spoilery detail, and we also discussed Mandalorian Season 3. And what we think of the next 3 announced Star Wars films. Overall, then, what did you think of Mando Season 3?
I think it did the same thing that Ted Lasso did. It strayed, and it became more of the show about that female Mandalorian. What was her name? Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. Yeah, it's basically the book of Bo-Katan, isn't it? Season 3 of Mando.
Honestly, I think what they had trouble, I think, with what happened in the Book of Boba Fett was they brought Grogu back. So, I mean, they created a little walking, robot for Grogu so he could get around more quickly. But it was only a temporary fix. So I think the bigger problem is, how are you going to really make Grogu into a character that's, involved in all these epic fights and situations.
You have to age him up,
then Mandalorian.
You have to age him up, and they're scared, man. They're scared of it.
But overall, I think a Mandalorian, there's still an entertaining show. I loved seeing the fight scenes.
I wasn't as blown away by the fight scenes this time. I thought in the season finale, when they have all the big, everyone on the jetpacks fight each other, it was just, the problem is you can't relate to anyone because as you're watching it, all the characters taking part have got helmets on. So you don't care, really.
The customization and the character with the Gatling gun.
Piss Figler. That's not his name. It's something like that, though. Paz Vega, Piss Figler.
But... I disappeared for 2 seconds, and you're talking about piss.
Mandalorian. I gotta say, it was good in some parts, and other parts, the execution, the idea was great, but the execution was poor.
I think we can comfortably say it is the worst of the 3 seasons so far. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. Just by technicality,
it's still a good show. It's still a fine show. It's still entertaining. It's not outright bad, which
But I almost forgot. Back to Apple TV, Schmigadoon. I love that show. I binged it. I caught it as the second season was happening, so I got up to about halfway before I had to wait every week. And I think if you're a fan of musicals and you know a little bit about them, you're gonna love this show. It's just honestly a lot better than I expected because I was just like, it's Keegan-Michael Key. He's a pretty funny guy. I've seen shows that I liked.
You're talking about language here.
Have you not heard of
musicals? Are we talking about
Schmigadoon? Schmigadoon is an original, and honestly, from the first episode on, I was just like, okay, I'm in. And in the second season, it takes a turn, kind of like American Horror Story, where it takes a twist on what the musical theory, it goes from Oklahoma to Chicago, and even it shows it off in the title. It goes from Schmigadoon to Chicago, yeah. And it's so fun to watch. It's just surface level entertaining. It's just really great. And
also, they're short episodes as well, right? They're only about half an hour episodes.
Yes.
You mentioned this a few episodes, Jose, and I watched the first 3 episodes back to back the other night on your recommendation.
I'm glad to hear that. How did you think? What you think?
As a non-musical person, I still really enjoyed it because I think the songs are really cleverly. I noticed that because it's a TV show, it doesn't have the scale or the lot of camera movement. Like when you have the musical numbers, it's a lot of static camera work, which I really noticed. But I suppose that's to kind of, it's.
You want to hear a fun fact about Schmigadoon, which is probably why they do static camera movements, which in a later episode, they really impressed me because of this knowledge. All the singing, or most of the singing, was done on camera.
Live. Wow.
It was live. So there's going to be a scene in the first season later on with one of the characters where she moves around. And granted, her voice isn't at her best, but the fact that she's singing live, it's impressive.
Says professional singer Jose Lopez.
No, I just when I find out about that, I was like, wow, that was really great.
Well, that answers my one kind of like thing I had that I was like, But no, I mean, yeah, it's Keegan-Michael Key. And to set you up a bit of what it's actually about, David, the basis of the show is Cecily Strong, who's a former Saturday Night Live cast member, and Keegan-Michael Key. They play a couple who've been together for about a year, I think it is. And they're out on a hike, and they suddenly just end up in this town of Schmigadoon that they can't leave. Unless they are truly in love with each other. And
there's a small cameo, which I won't... There's a small cameo at the beginning of the show, which I won't give away because it's worth watching and seeing, just like a quick cameo. But I think it's more about 4 or 5 years they're together. Because they flash back to 1 year for certain parts. Because it helps kind of set up the show. Yeah. It's
all right,
really
David,
great.
There's a recommendation. It's a musical show.
I will watch it.
Excellent.
I will. Sold on that immediately. All you had to do was say musicals, and I was there.
And it's short as well, like half-hour show.
That's perfect for my attention span.
Yes, really great for binging.
Well, from attention spans to something that, next up I've got a film review, and I've got a bit of a rant coming, guys, and I apologise in advance. Because this film made me angry. Not just because it was a bad film, which it was. Not just because it starred an Oscar-winning actor and director, and was directed by one of my previously favourite directors from my early years. Even against that, it still had a decent enough, if B-movie premise. And then it flushed it all away to be a 10th-rate Christopher Nolan ripoff. Ladies and gentlemen, that film stars Ben Affleck and is directed by Robert Rodriguez, and I was, lucky isn't the right word, but I endured all 93 minutes of this flaming piece of trash at a preview screening where the meagre audience was outright laughing at the film. And it's not a comedy.
Oh, man.
That film is called Hypnotic, and it's anything but. Because despite just being over 90 minutes long, I found myself struggling to stay awake in it because it was so dull.
But isn't that what hypnosis does to you? Doesn't it make you fall asleep?
The film is not that clever, David. If that was literally the point, and it was an avant-garde art film, and that was the whole point of it, like Werner Herzog was trying to do something like that, I'd be into it.
Yeah.
This is just bad. This is like... Right, so I'm going to put the spoiler warning in here.
This is your spoiler alert.
But honestly, this isn't even really a review. It's more of a warning for anyone. For you guys especially.
If anything, you're selling it to me by telling me it's bad. I'm wanting
we gotta confirm.
It's so bad, you gotta go and see it.
Well, look. It's not one of those films that's so good it's bad. It's just bad. I have seen almost universal agreement from many of our friends on Film Twitter about this. And so, I'm going to give away some of the plot points. But again, do not waste your time seeing this film. So, plot. We begin with Ben Affleck losing his daughter in a park.
He's just the worst father, isn't he? Just the worst.
He's a terrible dad, and he's an even worse cop. And then one day, a bank is robbed by the best part of the film, William Fichtner's character. Do you remember? He's the guy who gets a pencil through the head in The Dark Knight, in the bank. He's in loads of stuff. He's a really good character actor. And I was like, okay, cool, this guy's going to be the villain. Excellent. And he can hypnotise people just by talking to them.
David Blaine's shit right there.
Yeah, he tells a woman she's feeling really hot.
And
she starts
doesn't she walk into the street because of it? So I gotta say, all I know is from the trailer, and it's really sad to hear because the trailer actually made it look fairly decent.
The trailer looks cool. Yeah, the trailer looks like quite interesting. It's got intrigue in there.
The trailer did a really good job because the film, and I saw this. I didn't even see the trailer. I just saw Ben Affleck, Robert Rodriguez.
Ben Affleck, sold.
No, nothing about it. Ben Affleck on a poster, sold. Let's go and see it. And I was just, man, right. So, look, William Fichtner is also, he's a really good presence on screen. So seeing him get to be a full-on scenery-chewing bad guy, I was on, right? Because it's implied that he knows something about the disappearance of Affleck's daughter. And at that point, I was on board. I was like, right, it's going to be sad dad Affleck, a cop on the edge, versus an evil guy who's kidnapped his daughter for reasons, and he can hypnotise people by talking to them. And directed by Robert Rodriguez, I thought, I'm going to be in for a really solid B action movie. And then the film flushes all of that down the toilet with endless reveal after reveal, each more ludicrous than the next, and each done better by Christopher Nolan in any of his films. This makes Tenet look like...
Tenet was a good film. I think if you watch Tenet again, Tenet's a very good film.
Right, the reason I said Tenet is because for me, that's Nolan's worst film. It's still a good film.
He's definitely trying out different things in Tenet.
For me.
I prefer Tenet to Interstellar.
Ooh, hot take. Yeah.
I like it. I prefer Interstellar. No, either way. So the script is terrible. The plot makes no sense. All the plot is there for is to serve up a twist after twist, each stupider than the last. So much so that by the time you get to the end of the film and the final scene, and of course the telegraph twist, the whole audience can see it coming outright, and people were just laughing at it.
Was Ben Affleck hypnotised to steal his own daughter?
What? What's the spoiler?
I had it, Jose. I thought I had it.
Was this all a dream? Then he woke up.
Let's try and guess it. Okay, so the Ben Affleck is really his daughter.
Was he in a divorce settlement and his wife actually got this guy to make him forget that he even had a daughter?
No, but both of those are better than the film we cut.
Wow. Sorry, let's go. Let's hear.
Right, I've got to try and remember it now because I'm trying to block it from my memory already. Affleck used to be the most clever. He used to be like the best hypnotist guy out there himself. It's like a CIA bunch of hypnotists, and he worked for the top team. But his daughter was born, and she could have been the most powerful hypnotist person ever. And so they hid her with friends and his wife, who also was one of the best hypnotist people ever, who comes into it as another character. And the whole thing is them trying to find out, get him to reveal through. It's like the Matrix, so he keeps repeating the same simulation, and they keep trying to get him to tell him where their daughter is.
Wait, he knew where the daughter was? I thought
no, because he hypnotized himself so that he would forget and not know where his daughter was.
Oh, also that
they
couldn't get her to be the best hypnotist because he didn't want her in the CIA.
Hypnotist assassin, yeah, exactly.
That's horrible.
So he knew he was a hypnotist?
No, he didn't find out to the very end of the film when when he finds his daughter and his wife, and then his young preteen daughter, slaughters all the bad guys with her brain.
Oh wow!
And these were people who were his friends in previous scenes, and you're just watching it going, "What is going on?"
Sounds like a fucking good film. This.
It's so bad.
I quite like hypnotism. How do they hypnotize people? With, like you say, just by talking. Is it literally just by like kill him and then they do it?
There's nothing more to it than that, man.
So it's like is it like I was gonna say like The Shining, but that's not The Shining.
Well, it's kind of like Total Recall. I was
trying to think of like the same superpower.
Think about Total Recall removing his memory, so he thinks he's the good guy, and then it's like, oh, he's really the bad guy.
So that's what he's done to hypnotize himself. Yeah. But I'm trying to think like what's a superpower where you just tell people to do something and then they do it.
It's
hypnosis.
Is that the guy from Jessica Jones?
Yes,
the villain in Jessica Jones.
Kind of, yeah. That's a million times better than this.
Yeah.
But no, it does sound bad.
It's bad. Affleck is in sleep mode in this. I don't think he like.
Oh.
He just. I can't. I was watching.
It's a paycheck, is it?
Yeah, but I don't get this because like you're Ben Affleck. You're an Oscar-winning director, and you're married to J-Lo. You don't need money. You've won an Oscar, 2 Oscars, best film for Argo, and
best screenplay for.
You won the writing one for Good Will Hunting. So you can do what you want when you want. Why would you make this film?
He just married J-Lo.
In need of a big paycheck.
He just had a big bill from a wedding that he had.
Look, from any look, if you remember the Kevin Smith stuff back in the day, it's not even as good as Phantoms, in which I'm reliably informed Affleck was the bomb. And also, Robert Rodriguez, what happened to this guy, man? He was a director of El Mariachi, Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, The Faculty, From Dusk Till Dawn, Spy Kids, Sin City.
You did not just add Spy Kids into the same list
did,
as
man.
all of those.
Because they were good films that made a shit ton of money.
To be fair, I loved Spy Kids when I was a kid.
Go.
It was like when it came out when I was young. Yeah.
This even is like Maligned's last film, which was Battle Angel Alito, the one James Cameron produced with him. I perfectly enjoyed that. I thought that was a really good film. Now, this is the worst thing on his CV at all. Like, it's the worst thing he's ever done. Wow. And he even co-wrote it. And what annoys me even more, this actually made me angry at the start of the film, which is probably not a good start. There's a bit where Affleck's cop is listening to a stakeout where two people are retelling the pissing in the bar joke from Desperado, because there's a bit in Desperado when Tarantino comes in as an American tourist with another guy, and they tell the story about I'm going to piss on you, I'm going to piss on your bar, and you're going to be happy about it. And they're listening to two criminals tell the same story, and then they cut it off, and there's some like stupid line like, "Oh, that's not interesting," and I'm like, mate, that's the best part of your film. That joke was better than any of the dialogue in this film, and you wrote it maybe 30 years ago.
So what's the worst element of this? Is it like the direction? Is it
all
the
of
writing?
The direction. There's no memorable set pieces from a Robert Rodriguez film. Like, the direction's bad. The special effects are terrible. They try and do that kind of city warping thing, like you get from Inception.
Yeah.
Except it looks like it was done on a free plugin from Adobe, like an Adobe Premiere plugin set. It looks like someone just paid $20 for it looks horrible. And somehow this complete stinker of a film cost $60 million.
Wow.
How much has it made? Has it made a profit though, Neil? That's what we need to know. That's what the people need to know.
Not even close, man. I don't even think it's made 10 million yet. And bizarrely, it's out on streaming already in the States.
Oh wow!
But that's not encouragement to watch it, because it's bad.
It is encouragement to watch it. I want to watch it.
Don't watch your time.
This is the most you've ever sold me on anything ever. Is watching Hypnotic.
This is the worst film. Right,
and okay. I know the twist at the end.
Yeah, but that's not a reason to see it. Look. There's some abysmally bad CGI.
Is it one of those films that's like better to watch now that you know the twist?
No.
You can watch it again
never watch it.
with like new insight into it.
I will never watch this again.
Like Memento. When you watch Memento again for the second time, you're like, oh, fucking hell, like everything makes sense.
The CGI city shots in it are so bad that it looks like Dark City from about 25 years ago looks better. 1,000,000 times better than this.
Wow. Also,
this film has a mid-credit sequence after the final film, because the film finishes and the title starts out, and like we're all out the door, like we're leaving, and then there's like a mid-credit scene where everyone, the bad guys and everyone who'd been slaughtered, get up again because they hypnotized them, so he didn't really kill them. They honestly thought they was going to get a sequel out of this, man, when they did that scene. Yeah,
that's
and
crazy.
You're just watching it, and I was like, the biggest example of this was a terrible, terrible film is that the mid-credits sequence starts playing, and most people kept walking out. No one stopped. I just like, okay, I better stop. I just go. And it went on for too long, that bit as well. Do not waste your time even watching this on streaming. And I actually said, when I wrote this, I was like, don't even waste your time watching this on streaming when it inevitably goes on streaming, probably by the end of this podcast, and it's actually on streaming already. This is the worst film I have seen in years, and it annoys me more because how the film had early potential, and it just wasted it. Affleck, you owe me 10 English pounds. And this is my first ever 1 out of 10 review. 1. I give this a 1.
Wow,
that is
really...
We got to see it, Jose. Jose, me and you, watch party.
I mean, I think it's one of those situations where we could probably drink and then take a shot every couple minutes just to get through it.
Yeah, like every time you mention like hypnosis.
Frowns.
Oh, frown
Ooh,
flick. Yes.
Flick.
Every time you look sad. The thing is, this film was 93 minutes, and I almost fell asleep 3 times in it. And this was on a Monday night at 7:30. It's not like, seeing a 2-hour film on a Friday around 10 o'clock. I was fresh on the Monday, and it was so dull, I was struggling to stay awake in it. It's 93 minutes, and it felt like 4 hours, because it's so dull.
If we do a streaming, I think, if anything, if we do a watch party, David, as much as I'd love to do this movie, I think you already know what we have to watch. You get one guess, and it's behind your head.
Star Wars?
Behind your... Game of Thrones. Remember, I've only seen 3 episodes.
Okay.
But I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you've
only seen 3 episodes.
Sorry, it's because I have a lightsaber.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. But anyways,
so that's
it
what I
is
was
tempting
thinking.
to see this movie knowing how bad it is, even though
It's not.
but I would not see it
What
sober.
have I done? Have you guys not listened to a word I have said?
The words you have
I
said have caused.
To be fair, mate, it's normally white noise. I think for a lot of people, people put this podcast on to fall asleep to, because like the whale noises
I
that
hate
you
you,
get
David.
when you.
I'm not just saying that when we had Ben Lord guest, we got more downloads, or he actually is friends with celebrities.
Should we move on
That's
to
Jose's
Air,
thoughts on
the
that.
movie that I've seen?
Yeah, the next thing I'm going to talk about is yet another Ben Affleck film I've seen.
Oh, you're right.
But
Much more redeeming.
But from an Affleck bomb in front of the camera to Affleck behind the camera in a non-bomb. That's terrible. But he reteams with his best bud, Matt Damon, for Air, the story of Nike and Michael Jordan. Now, on paper, I've got absolutely no interest in this film because it's about two things I have
This
little
is
interest in.
spoiler-free, right? I'm going to watch this weekend, mate.
Mm-hmm. This is spoiler-free, yeah. And as I said, I have little interest in this because it's all about basketball and trainer culture. Mm-hmm. Also, it's a film that's made to almost celebrate a multi-billion-dollar brand and trainer company. Plus, also, if you can get away from the story that it's all about Air Jordans, Michael Jordan as a character barely appears in the film. We never see him in close-up, and it's only really near the end of the film we hear him even speak. And apparently the reason for this was he didn't want to do a film about himself. He actually specified that if you're going to make the film, I don't want to be featured as a character in it. And you get one conversation with one of them on the phone. And that's because Michael Jordan in real life said, if you do the story, my mum was the one who was on the negotiations. She was the one who was controlled everything. Because at the time of this film, he's an 18-year-old rookie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Really,
he's in love with Adidas as well.
Honestly,
Adidas is Michael Jordan's go-to shoe.
Honestly, if we really want to get into it, it's more about the deal of the shoe. It's not even so much as there is a small section near the end of the movie where they're trying to convince Michael, and they come up with the shoe a little bit and the brand and a little bit of the aspect. It could have been so much more about the shoe, but it's really about the deal itself, honestly, and then trying to convince his mom. That's really the story.
It also reminded me of Tetris a little bit, as in it's a film where a lot of it just takes place in boardrooms.
Yes. I mean, I feel like this is a little bit better because the characters seem a little more heartfelt.
I think Affleck's these days now, at least, especially after that horror show, he's a much better director than he is in front of the camera. I think on certain things. The film does work, and as you're completely right, Jose, because it follows Matt Damon's Sonny Vaccaro, and he's in charge of Nike's languishing basketball shoe division. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how at this time Nike are the plucky underdog with the maverick owner Phil Knight, who's played in an extended cameo by Affleck himself. Yeah. Now, Damon's job as Sonny is to scour games for the next big star, and the film essentially is him trying to persuade the rest of Nike that they put all their budget into one player, which is Michael Jordan.
It's a huge risk for him, yeah.
Yeah, because the
story behind this is actually quite famous. It's covered in The Last Dance as well, the documentary on Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so their idea is they're going to brand the shoe to him. The film also stars Jason Bateman playing Rob Strasser, who's one of the execs who basically plays Jason Bateman. He plays that exact same kind of role that he plays in everything. But I think the standout of the film is probably Viola Davis as Dolores Jordan, Michael's mother, because she is the power behind the throne. And the start of the film, it's really Sonny's job, Damon's job, to convince her to even take the meeting with Nike in the first place, because he's got a deal set up. He's got a meeting with Converse, who are the big basketball thing, and then also Adidas are the kings of everything at the minute as well. And it's his job to convince her that Michael should sign with them over Converse and Adidas. And look, it's got a great 80s soundtrack. All the cast are really affable, and they do exactly what you'd expect in this type of film. And it's a million times better than Affleck's Hypnotic. If you're interested in basketball and you're a massive sneakerhead, you're going to get a lot more out of this than I did. But for me, I enjoyed it. It was a perfectly fine, middle-of-the-road film. But I think you guys might enjoy it more.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, and I probably will. I think it's one of the biggest gambling payoffs ever in history. The gambling on Michael Jordan becoming the GOAT.
Yes, I mean, I think the movie just does a really good job. I mean, we all know the outcome, but I think even then, it's just really fun to see how they got there, because it does start even before their decision to go after Michael, which I think it's for anyone who likes to just know small details about the whole process. It's really a really great film to watch. And there was a couple Marlon Wayans, he's in one scene, but I have to admit, seeing him in a serious situation or a serious role was so nice compared to just seeing him in his usual comedic roles. Chris Tucker.
I didn't realise that was Marlon Wayans.
Have a guess, guys. Have a guess at how much these original 1985 Air Jordans will now cost you.
Oh, $10,000 maybe?
1985. The
1985
10,000?
Actual shoes?
Yeah.
10,000 maybe?
The shoes from...
100,000.
100,000. Okay, so in between the two, Neil blew it out, and so it's about 30K.
30,000. I mean, shoe people, the shoe culture is huge, especially here in the US. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in certain cities in the South, here in Tampa, there's even shoe stores dedicated just to vintage shoes. The best part about Air, the movie, is the ensemble cast as a whole. Like, if it was just about Viola Davis talking to Matt Damon, it wouldn't be as good. And then it shows the characters going to Adidas and Adidas. I don't know how you pronounce it. But also to Converse. And they kind of put into perspective what it was like at that time. Because right now, Converse, it's a nice little shoe company. But at the time, it was dominant in the basketball sector, And so it's kind of hard to know that unless the movie really puts it in perspective. So I really like just how it puts everything into context in the cast.
When was this? 85. Who were the powerhouses? The Boston Celtics?
Celtics,
85.
Lakers, so Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and then I think, my friends are going to hate me for this, but there was a tall guy.
Who? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
I think, yeah. There was a couple...
From Airplanes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Exactly. So there was a few basketball players that were big names, but what the film goes into is Nike decided instead of going for 3 affordable names, they decided to just go all in with Michael. So that's really just a great... I thought it was a nice film. It wasn't one of the best, but it was a good, solid film. I didn't feel like I lost a lot of time watching it.
I started watching it on a Monday night at about 10 o'clock, and I ended up watching the whole thing. And I thought I was just going to doze off. I want something easy. I'm not going to have to concentrate. And I ended up thinking, shit, it's midnight, because I've watched the whole film.
Yeah.
I will say it made me want to actually watch a documentary about Michael Jordan, because I wanted to know more about his life and his amazing career. Again, because I'm not a basketball guy, so I was like, that's what I got out of the film. I was like, I want to know more about this guy. Like, this only scratches the surface of the start of his career.
Michael Jordan, dude, watch The Last Dance. It's genuinely one of the best.
I've heard it's one of the best sports documentaries.
It is.
And it came out during COVID, where there was no sports, so they couldn't have dropped it at a better time when people were dying for something to watch. And the story of the Bulls from the 91, 92, 93 Bulls and 96, 7, and 8 Bulls, I think.
Yeah, it's
it's brilliant, man.
And if I'm correct, I want to say that there's also a documentary about the shoemaker Peter Moore, because in the shoe industry there is an aura of respect over him, because not only did he create the Jordans, but he created many more shoes that were iconic in the U.S. that I think a lot of people loved. That was one of the few things I was like, I wish we would have gotten more about him, because there's so much more about him that they really just couldn't get to.
I'd give it a solid... I think I give it a solid 3 out of 5. 3 stars out of 5. But I think if you're a big trainer guy and you're a big basketball fan, you'll probably go 4.
I definitely say 4. Solid 4.
Being a basketball man yourself, Jose, who is the GOAT in your opinion of basketball?
Okay, I have to say I'm not a basketball guy.
Okay.
But from what I know, it really is Jordan, honestly.
So for me, it's Jordan. There's a lot. It's the LeBron versus Jordan debate, and for me, it's Michael Jordan, because you have the debate with Michael Jordan being the greatest sportsman of all time, the greatest athlete of all time, whereas LeBron James doesn't come into that.
LeBron
equation.
James is a great athlete.
That's the difference between me.
But
dude, he's number 2.
Here's the thing: if you have to say, "Oh, we're comparing him to Jordan," then that already says that Jordan's better. It's like saying, "Who's stronger, Superman or whoever?"
But before Jordan came along, you compared Jordan to Wilt. It's just generation to generation to generation,
or Bird or.
For us in football, it would be at a minute. I would say one of my greatest one of the greatest players ever for my team, back almost 80 years ago, scored 60 goals in one season, and no one's come close to that except this year. A young Norwegian player for Man City, Erling Haaland, has got over 50 odd goals.
I've heard about that. That's insane.
He's got 2 games left to play.
36 games in the Premier League, but 29 of those were non-penalty goals. The rest of them were penalties.
Oh wow,
he's a beast. He's just the best. He's the best young player going in a minute.
He's still not got the most non-penalty goals though, brother. You know who's got the most non-penalty goals?
Your mum.
Mo Salah and Luis Suarez.
Oh.
31
And
each.
you can hear the rest of this on the We Needed Sports podcast, which I'm sure we'll be on. So finally today, I'm
You're
going
the
to
one that brought it up. Fucking Dixie Dean. No one knows who fucking Dixie Dean is. Even Everton fans don't know what he is. You just know him. You see him as a stat. That's all.
Finally today, I'm going to round you off with a bit of culture. And this is a Finnish movie. And last year we reviewed a Finnish movie, which was the horror film Hatching, which was essentially E.T. if it had been directed by David Cronenberg. Well, this is a film called Sisu. A 90-minute Finnish-made, but bizarrely in English, despite all the actors being Finnish, and it's not dubbed. They are actually I think they recorded the film in Finnish and in English as well, which is cool.
Interesting.
And it is a bloodbath of a film that is like if Tarantino directed John Wick. And it's actually gone on a wide release in the UK, and I think in the States as well. And it's actually broken into the top 10s.
Wow.
And I'm really pleased about that. Directed by Jalmari Helander, Sisu is set during Finnish Lapland near the end of World War II, as the Nazis are just burning everything down on their way as they retreat. We meet former Finnish commander and gold prospector Korpi, who lives out in the middle of the wilderness with his dog looking for gold. After finding a lot of gold, he makes his way to the next town. But before you know it, he runs into some pesky Nazis who want his gold, and well, he kills them. A lot. And it's very Tarantino-esque in that each section of the film has chapters, and it's got that kind of super slow-mo stylized violence. And Jorma Tomilia is superb, because you find out later on as the film's going on, he's a former commando who was known, a Finnish commando who's got the highest kill rate of anyone in history. And he was known as the Immortal. And yeah, they try everything to kill this man. He's shot, he's stabbed, he even sets himself on fire at one point to escape the dogs. Nothing kills him.
Wow.
The violence is hyper-realised, and at a certain point you begin to laugh along with the ridiculousness of the film. There is a small subplot about a group of women who are being kept as sex slaves by the Nazis, but this is the Immortals film, and from a budget of only $6 million, it's already more than doubled that in a matter of days.
Wow.
And like you say, it's wide release in the UK. It's really heartening. You can go and see it tomorrow night alongside Spider-Verse, and Sisu is on. I think the 90-minute running time helps, because they can obviously get it in more often. And yeah, it's just extremely entertaining. It's a bloodbath of the film, and I really can't wait to see what this director does next, because, wow, it was awesome.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really thought, I saw the trailer, and I saw the advertising after it picked up some steam, so I saw a little fun. You could tell that the marketing team was having fun with it, because they were taking quotes from Twitter, and I think from the trailer initially, they showed the dog, and so I guess people on Twitter were like, please don't kill off the dog, and so they're like, we don't kill off the dog, don't worry, and they included it in their commercial, which I thought
That's cool. I didn't see that.
I thought it was excellent. But yeah,
They kill off the dog though, don't they? Neil?
let's not.
No spoilers.
But I gotta say, I really want to watch it, because it really did give me Inglourious Bastard vibes. I really thought it was a spin-off, and that's awesome. I can't wait to watch it, honestly.
I was going to say that's all the time we have on this slightly ranty and political episode of the We Needed Roads podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
We Needed Roads.